In the bustling, ever-vibrant market of Lagos, where the air hummed with the symphony of commerce and the aroma of 1,000 different spices, there was one food stall that stood out above all others. It belonged to a woman named Mama F. Her stall was never empty. From the break of dawn until the last ray of sun dipped below the horizon, a long queue of eager customers would snake its way around her little corner of the market. They came for her legendary egusi soup, her jollof rice that was said to be blessed by the gods, and her pepper soup that could chase away any ailment. Mama F's food was delicious. There was no denying it, but the sheer magnetism of her stall was something of a local legend. Other vendors, who worked just as hard, chopping, stirring, and sweating over their own pots, would watch with a mixture of awe and envy. They would see customers walk right past their own enticing displays, their senses seemingly turned off, only to reawaken when they caught a whiff of whatever magic was brewing at Mama F's. What is her secret? They would whisper amongst themselves. Does she use a special spice from a faraway land? Does she have a family recipe passed down through generations of royalty? Some speculated it was just good luck. Others believed it was something more. Something unnatural. A young woman named Adana, who sold fresh vegetables just a few stalls away, was particularly perplexed. She was new to the market, full of hope and ambition, but her sales were dwindling. Day after day, she watched people bypass her vibrant, fresh produce to line up for Mama F's food. One evening, as the market was closing, Adana's curiosity finally got the better of her. She decided she had to know the secret. Under the cloak of the evening twilight, Adana crept towards Mama F's deserted stall. The last embers of the cooking fire glowed faintly. A massive, soot-blackened pot sat on the hearth, its lid slightly ajar. Adana's heart pounded in her chest. She knew it was wrong to pry, but her desperation was a powerful motivator. Taking a deep breath, she tiptoed closer and, with trembling hands, lifted the heavy lid. The sight that greeted her made her blood run cold. Curled at the bottom of the enormous pot, nestled amongst leftover bits of meat and vegetables, was a snake. But this was no ordinary snake. It was a giant anaconda, its scales shimmering with an eerie, unnatural light, even in the dimness. It was huge, terrifying, and very much alive, its body moving in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Adana clamped her hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. This was the secret ingredient. This was the charm. She stumbled backward, her mind reeling. The snake wasn't for eating. It was something else entirely, a dark magic used to bewitch the customers, to lure them in and cloud their judgment. The delicious taste they savored was nothing but a powerful illusion, woven by the sinister presence in the pot. Shaking with fear and disgust, Adana fled into the night. The horrifying image of the coiled serpent burned into her memory. The next morning, Adana couldn't keep silent. Her conscience wouldn't allow it. She first confided in Ija Funk, the elderly woman who sold fabrics and was considered the matriarch of the market. As Adana recounted the story, her voice trembling, Ija Funk's face hardened. She'd heard whispers of such things, dark juju used for profit, but to see it confirmed in her own market filled her with righteous anger. Word travels faster than a wildfire in a Lagos market. Ija Funk gathered a few of the other trusted vendors, and Adana told her story again. From a hushed whisper, it grew into a rumbling murmur, then an outraged roar that swept through the entire marketplace. The vendors, their envy now replaced with pure fury, felt utterly betrayed. They had been competing not with a fellow cook, but with black magic. The customers, who had spent their hard-earned money at Mama F's stall, felt sickened and violated. The crowd, now an angry mob, began to move as one. They marched towards Mama F's stall, their voices rising in a chorus of accusation. Mama F was just serving her first customer of the day, a cheerful smile on her face, completely unaware of the storm that was about to break. "Witch?" someone screamed. "Deceiver!" shouted another. Mama F looked up, her smile faltering as she saw the sea of angry faces approaching. Before she could utter a word, the crowd descended upon her. They bypassed her, their target, the giant black pot. With a collective heave, they tipped it over. With a deafening crash, the pot hit the ground, and out It slithered. The giant anaconda, exposed to the daylight and the horrified shrieks of the crowd, uncoiled to its full, monstrous length. Panic erupted. People screamed and scrambled away, their worst fears confirmed in the most dramatic way possible. The charm was broken. The illusion was shattered. The crowd's fear quickly turned back into rage, now directed entirely at Mamalef. She tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The very people who had sung her praises just yesterday now saw her as a monster. The market vendors, her colleagues, led the charge. They felt the most betrayed. They grabbed sticks, stools, anything they could find, and the collective anger of the market was unleashed upon her. It was a chaotic and violent scene. The justice of the market was swift and brutal. They beat her and chased her out of the market, her cries lost in the din of their fury. They tore down her stall, breaking her tables and scattering her belongings, ensuring that no trace of her dark business remained. When the dust settled, the giant anaconda had vanished, disappearing back into whatever dark corner it had come from. Mamayef was never seen in the Lagos market again. Her story, however, became a permanent part of its history. It was a chilling, cautionary tale, a stark reminder whispered from one generation of vendors to the next, that success built on deceit is a fragile house, and that no secret, especially one as dark and slippery as a snake, in a pot can stay hidden forever. And from that day on, the vendors in the market looked at each other with a new sense of respect, bound by the shared knowledge that the most important ingredient in any business is, and always will be, honesty. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more stories. In the bustling heart of a lively market, where the air hummed with the chatter of vendors and the scent of exotic spices, there was a woman who was a legend in her own right. Her name was Alara, and she sold the most magnificent stews anyone had ever tasted. People would line up for blocks, their mouths watering, just for a single bowl of her famous concoction. Her stall was simple, just a large, simmering pot over a crackling fire. But the aroma it produced was nothing short of magical. Every day, without fail, Ilara would be there, stirring her pot with a long wooden spoon, a serene smile on her face. But Ilara had a secret, a very peculiar one. Tucked away, nestled at the very bottom of her enormous stew pot, was a small, coiled snake. It wasn't a real snake, of course, but a beautifully carved figurine made of smooth, dark wood. Its eyes were tiny inlaid pearls, and its scales were so meticulously detailed they seemed to ripple in the bubbling stew. This wooden snake was her good luck charm, a family heirloom passed down through generations of cooks. Her grandmother had given it to her on the day she opened her stall, whispering that it held the spirit of their ancestors, the ones who had perfected the very stew she now served. The snake, her grandmother had explained, was the keeper of the recipe's soul. It was meant to absorb the essence of every ingredient, to harmonize the flavors, and to bless the stew with a taste that was unforgettable. So, every morning, before adding the first vegetable or the first drop of broth, Alara would gently place the wooden snake at the bottom of the pot. She would whisper a small thank you to it, a little prayer for a good day of business. Then, as she cooked, she imagined the little snake working its magic, weaving together the tastes of the tender meat, the earthy vegetables, and the fragrant herbs into a perfect symphony of flavor. The townspeople were none the wiser. They simply knew that Alara's stew was the best. They would talk about it for hours. "It's the herbs," one would exclaim. "No, it's the way she slow cooks the meat until it melts in your mouth," another would argue. They came up with all sorts of theories. Some even whispered that Alara was a sorceress, enchanting her food with spells to make it so irresistible. Alara would just laugh whenever she heard these rumors, her eyes twinkling. She let them believe what they wanted. Her secret was safe with her, and with the little wooden snake at the bottom of the pot. One sunny afternoon, a wealthy merchant, known for his discerning palate, and even more for his arrogance, visited the market. He had heard tales of Alara's stew, and had come to judge it for himself. He pushed his way to the front of the line, scoffing at the eager crowd. "I will have a bowl of the so-called legendary stew," he announced, his voice dripping with condescension. Ilara, ever so graceful, ladled a generous portion into a bowl and handed it to him. The merchant took a spoonful, his face a mask of skepticism, but as the stew touched his lips, his eyes widened in disbelief. He was speechless. He took another spoonful, and then another, faster and faster. He had never tasted anything so complex, so comforting, so utterly delicious in all his travels. The flavors danced on his tongue, a perfect balance of savory, sweet, and spicy. Forgetting all his pride, he finished the bowl in record time and slammed it down on the counter. "What is your secret, woman?" he demanded, his voice no longer arrogant, but filled with genuine awe. I'm a man of means. I will pay you handsomely for your recipe. Name your price." Ilara simply smiled her enigmatic smile. She looked at her steaming pot, knowing her silent little partner was swimming happily within. "Sir," she said gently, "some secrets are not for sale. They are not made of ingredients that can be bought or measured. They are made of tradition, of love, and a little bit of magic." The merchant, humbled and bewildered, could only nod. He bought another bowl, this time eating it slowly, savoring every drop, understanding that he was tasting something far more valuable than gold. Years passed, and Ilara grew older. Her hair turned to silver, but her hands remained steady, and her smile as warm as ever. The line for her stew never shortened. One day, a young girl named Maya, an orphan who often helped other vendors for a bite to eat, was watching Ilara with wide, curious eyes. She had always admired the kind woman and dreamed of one day cooking just like her. Seeing the longing in the girl's gaze, Ilara beckoned her over. "You have a cook's heart, little one," she said softly. "I can see it in your eyes." From that day on, Maya became Ilara's apprentice. She learned how to chop vegetables with precision, how to recognize the freshest herbs by their scent alone, and how to tend the fire so it burned just right. Ilara taught her everything she knew about the stew, every single ingredient, every step of the process. Finally, the day came when Ilara felt she could no longer manage the heavy pot on her own. It was time. That evening, after the market had closed and they were cleaning up, Ilara ladled out the last of the stew. Then, she reached deep into the now empty pot with her wooden spoon and carefully, reverently, fished out the little wooden snake. Its pearly eyes seemed to glint in the twilight. She held it in her palm, the wood warm and slick from a lifetime of simmering in her famous broth. She turned to Maya, whose eyes were wide with wonder. "This," Ilara said, placing the snake in Maya's small hands, "is the most important ingredient of all. It is not just wood. It is history. It is love. It is the soul of our stew. Never cook without it. Talk to it. Thank it. And it will never fail you." Maya looked down at the little snake, feeling the weight of the tradition now placed in her care. A tear welled up in her eye, but she blinked it back, her heart swelling with gratitude and determination. The next morning, it was Maya who stood before the giant pot. With trembling but steady hands, she whispered a thank you and gently placed the wooden snake at the bottom. She then began to cook, following every step Ilara had taught her. As the familiar, magical aroma began to fill the air, a crowd started to gather, whispering amongst themselves, wondering if the stew would be the same. The first customer, an old man who had been eating Ilara's stew for 30 years, took a cautious sip. His face broke into a wide, familiar grin. "It's perfect," he declared. "Just as it always has been." A cheer went through the crowd. Maya looked over at Ilara, who was sitting on a nearby stool, watching with a proud, serene smile. Maya smiled back, a new confidence blooming within her. She understood now. The secret wasn't just the snake, or the herbs, or the slow cooking. The secret was the continuity, the passing of a legacy from one loving hand to another, all stirred together in a pot of stew, forever guarded by its silent, wooden keeper. The legend would continue, and the market would always have its magical stew. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tales from around the world. We'd love to have you back.